Oh yeah, Suunto is back, baby, and this thing is kind of a beast. Welcome back, I'm Dave from Chase the Summit, and this is the brand new Suunto Vertical. This new multi-sport watch sits right at the top of Suunto's lineup as their highest end flagship device with all the latest innovation that Suunto has to offer. There are four major areas of innovation that Suunto focused on when they were developing this watch, and that would be battery life, solar functionality, mapping and navigation, and of course, GPS accuracy. In this video today, I'll be walking through all of the new and exciting features of the Suunto Vertical, and along the way, I'll be sharing a bunch of my test data that I've collected from various runs that I've done with this watch for GPS and heart rate accuracy. I'll also be comparing the new Vertical directly against its competition like the Garmin Fenix 7, the Apple Watch Ultra, or even the COROS VERTIX 2. And at the end of this video, I'll also try to answer the big question. Is the Suunto Vertical right for you? Should you get one? That's a really hard question to answer. As we go through this, keep in mind I've only had the Suunto Vertical for about a week now, but I have been wearing it 24/7 and I've gone on a bunch of runs with it for test data, so I feel like I've got a pretty good sample of what this thing's all about, and that's why I want to share my opinion with you in this video today. Now let's dive headfirst into the first topic I want to talk about today, and that's going to be options and pricing, because this is not a cheap watch. The Suunto Vertical comes in two different flavors. There's going to be the titanium solar model that I have here, and this watch comes in at $839. Now there is another version that's going to be stainless steel without the titanium and without solar, and that comes in at $629, so a little over $200 cheaper for that model. Both the titanium and steel versions come in four different colors. There's black, sand, forest, ruby, lime, and canyon, which is the one I have here with the orange band. And again, this is the titanium solar model. At this point, you might be clicking away from this video because of how expensive this watch is, being $839 for the titanium model. That's a lot of money, but we do have to keep in mind that this price is comparable to all of the other flagship devices out there, like the Garmin Fenix 7 Sapphire Solar coming in at $900 here in the USA is actually more expensive than the new Suunto Vertical. I guess the point I'm trying to make right now is that yes, this is a very expensive watch, but when you compare it to the landscape of other devices out there at this level, it's really comparable and it's really not that much more. But again, it's really up to you to decide whether or not you have $600 to $800 to spare to spend on a watch like this. Quick interruption, if you're finding this video fun or helpful or anything, please consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below, because that really helps me out and it's pretty easy to do. Also, if you're planning on picking up the Suunto Vertical or any other watch I show in this video, I'll have everything linked in the description down below, and those links do help support my channel, but they cost nothing extra to you, so you might as well use them. Okay, back to the video. The next thing I want to talk about in this video is the Suunto brand and the sustainability that they're striving for, because I find this kind of interesting. When I spoke with Suunto, they wanted to be very clear that Suunto is still Suunto, despite being recently acquired or bought out by a Chinese company called Lishan. The Suunto Vertical in particular is fully carbon compensated, which means that the sustainability efforts that Suunto has put into place outweigh the waste that's generated by manufacturing these watches, which is really cool and something I applaud. There's actually a really cool video over on Suunto's YouTube channel that I suggest you check out after this video, of course, and I'll link that up here or down below, on how the Suunto factory works and what they've done to reduce their footprint on the environment. Moving right along, let's drop into size and weight of the Suunto Vertical. As you can see here, it's a pretty big watch. This watch comes in at 49 millimeters in diameter, it's about 13.5 millimeters thick, and it comes in at 76 grams in the titanium model, and if you opt for the steel model, it will be 10 grams heavier at 86 grams. And for a quick size comparison, I've got some other watches on the table here. All the way on the left, we've got the Apple Watch Ultra. Again, this is a 49 millimeter square case size. Then we've got the Suunto Vertical next to it. We've got the Garmin Epix Gen 2 here, same size as the Fenix 7. The Garmin Fenix 7X, which is a 51 millimeter case size. And then we've got the COROS VERTIX 2, which again is a 51 millimeter case size. And compared to the Garmin Fenix 7X, they're actually pretty similar. I'd say that the Suunto Vertical feels a little bit smaller, especially that lug-to-lug distance feels a little bit smaller. smaller, and the overall thickness of the Vertical also feels just a little bit smaller, even though they look pretty similar. And for one more quick size comparison, on the right we've got the Suunto 9 Peak Pro, and then on the left we've got the Suunto Vertical, and you can see there's a pretty stark difference between the two models here. The Suunto Vertical is substantially larger than the Suunto 9 Peak Pro. And this is what the Suunto Vertical looks like on my wrist, and keep in mind my wrist is about 165 millimeters, so that's what it looks like. It's a pretty big watch, but honestly I've been wearing it for about a week and I have no issues sleeping with this or wearing it every day. It's a big watch, but it's not crazy big. Now let's take a closer look at the hardware, because this watch is an absolute tank of a watch. The bezel of this watch is made out of metal, which will either be titanium or steel depending on the model you choose, but more interestingly, the back of this watch is all metal, including the strap lugs. When I hold this watch in my hand, it screams premium device. This watch feels like an absolute tank, like it's super durable and like it's going to last a long time. Like I said, I've only had the watch for like a week, but really I have no concerns with durability with this watch because of just the way it feels. When it comes to the buttons on the Suunto Vertical, this is a 3-button arrangement, which is very similar to something like the Suunto 9 Peak Pro I have here. So there is a scroll up button, a scroll down button, and then the middle is going to be a select button or your back button if you hold it down. I really like the way this watch looks. In particular, this colorway with the orange band on it looks really cool. The band isn't like overly super bright orange. It's sort of this kind of grayish orange, which I actually like. And the way there's like 2 tones of gray and black in the case and the orange band, it just all ties together in a really nice looking watch. The only other detail I noticed about this watch is that right above the band and below the Suunto emblem here is a couple of holes, which I believe are for the barometer and altimeter, but I'm not totally sure. I'm just assuming that's what those do. In terms of durability, the Suunto Vertical is mil standard 810 certified for shock and water resistance. It's also got an operating temperature range of -5 Fahrenheit all the way up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold and pretty hot. On top of all that, it's also water resistant to 100 meters, so you're good to go in the ocean or in a pool or even take a shower with this watch and not have to worry about it. When it comes to the included band on the Suunto Vertical, this watch takes a 22 millimeter quick release band, which means you can use your fingernail and pop the band off very easily just like that and put a different color or different material on that you might want to wear on a different day. These 22 millimeter bands are widely available on places like Amazon or even from Suunto directly. However, the included band with the Suunto Vertical is actually really nice. It's got all of these holes cut in it, so there's a lot of ventilation, and the way the strap works is really nice as well. It's got a standard clasp for getting it on your wrist, but it's got this kind of little pin lug thing to lock the remaining slack over on the side here. And I find it just very easy to use and very comfortable. I really like the way this band works and feels overall. If I flip the watch over, you'll notice one more detail, and it's that it has the same charging contact layout as something like the Suunto 9 Peak Pro. On the left is the Suunto Vertical, on the right is the 9 Peak Pro, and as you can see here, the included magnetic charger works on both the Vertical and the 9 Peak Pro as well. Now let's talk about the display on the Suunto Vertical. This is a 1.4-inch memory in pixel transflective display, which is Suunto's largest display that they've ever made. And if I compare this new display at 1.4 inches compared to the old display on the Suunto 9 Peak Pro, you can see there's quite a difference in size between the two. The display on the Suunto Vertical is touch enabled, so you can swipe up and down or left and right to go through all of your settings. And on top of that, while it does have somewhat of a chunky bezel around the perimeter of the watch, this bezel is actually a solar panel, so it does serve a purpose. It's really hard to see the actual photovoltaic cell around the edge there, but it does have this sort of greenish, copperish, bluish color to it at certain angles of light. As you can see there on the camera, it looks a little bit green, and that's the actual solar panel around the perimeter of the watch. And we'll talk all about the solar panel and battery life in a minute. Now let's talk about the user interface on the Suunto Vertical, because it's pretty much the same as the Suunto 9 Peak Pro and Suunto 9 Peak. As you can see from the watch face, if I swipe down from the top, I go through all of my activities, just like on the Suunto 9 Peak Pro, and if I swipe up from the watch face, I end up in my settings and things like that. However, there are a couple of new things on the Suunto Vertical that are not on the Suunto 9 Peak Pro, including this watch face. This watch face in particular actually has a little solar graph at the bottom here to show you how much sun you've collected throughout the day. Swiping over one more time, we get to one of the new widgets here, and this is the weather widget. As you can see here, I've got my current conditions in the area that I'm at, and this new weather widget is going to be synced every 1 hour. So it says here it's 73 degrees Fahrenheit outside, it's sunny, partly cloudy, 13-mile-per-hour winds, and if I scroll down, I get even more information for the rest of the forecast for the day, hour by hour throughout the day. Down at the bottom here, we've got feels like, humidity, probability of precipitation, the wind speed and wind gusts, and all the way at the bottom, we do have an air quality widget as well. One thing missing from this weather widget is a multi-day forecast. They do have hour by hour, but if you want to know the weather for tomorrow or the following day, you don't get that information here for some reason. And if we scroll over one more time to the final widget on the Suunto Vertical is the solar widget. Now this widget has an instant solar indicator at the top here. It's kind of a little gray circle at the top, and that gray circle will illuminate orange depending how much sunlight the watch is getting. And I'll show you a clip of that over me talking right now. It's a little bit easier to explain. But as you can see, as I put the watch in the shade and then into the sun, that little ring at the top will show you how much sun is actually being collected. And below the instant indicator is a graph of the past 3 hours of how much sunlight you've gotten. And if you scroll down on the solar widget, you do get a 7-day history. The user experience of the Suunto Vertical and the user interface is actually very good. However, there is a little bit of lag when you do certain things. For example, if I'm at my watch face and I click the button once, you can see that moving to the next widget, there's a little bit of lag getting from one widget to another, and that's the same as you cycle through all the widgets. It's not really instant. It does take a second for it to click and move to the next widget. When it comes to activity tracking on the Suunto Vertical, again, it is very similar to the activity profiles on the Suunto 9 Peak Pro. As you can see, both have the standard things like running, walking, cycling, etc. But there's more niche activities in here like water sports and winter sports, along with mountain biking and weight training and everything like that. And on top of all of your pre-configured activity profiles, you can of course design your own activity if you have your own unique sport and you want to set it up your own way. However, one thing that's not in common between the Suunto 9 Peak Pro and the new Suunto Vertical is going to be mapping and navigation, because that's where the Suunto Vertical got a huge upgrade. The new Suunto Vertical is compatible with global offline mapping that you can actually download from the Suunto app on your phone. The nice thing about this is that it is completely free, so you don't have to pay a subscription fee to get these maps on your watch. And these maps have trails and contour lines and waterways and all the information that you'd want for context when you're out trail running or hiking. To get the maps from the Suunto app onto your watch, you'll need to drop into a new setting in the Suunto app called Map Manager. Map Manager will actually identify the area you're currently in and suggest the maps to download. For me, that would be Massachusetts. So all I had to do is click on Massachusetts and then click download, and it started to sync over to my watch after I set up Wi-Fi. Keep in mind that you will need a Wi-Fi network available to get these maps onto the watch, because it actually downloads directly to the watch over Wi-Fi. But one thing I did notice is when I actually downloaded the map, it took a very long time. Just for the map of Massachusetts here in the USA, took about an hour to complete, and I've got a really fast Wi-Fi network here in this office. Included in a single map download are multiple different map styles like outdoor, high contrast, and dark mode, which is super cool. You can change those modes while you're in an activity to see different map styles. If you're out in direct sunlight and need more contrast, you can use high contrast. If you're in a bright environment, you can use dark mode, and it's really up to you which style you want to use. The new Suunto Vertical has 32 gigabytes of internal storage for maps, which is a lot of space considering that the map of Massachusetts that I downloaded was only 300 megabytes. You can access the map in the Suunto Vertical in two ways. The first way to do it is simply scroll down into the map option in the settings here. If I click on that, it'll actually drop me directly into a map view of my current location once it acquires a GPS fix. The other way you can access this map is simply by going into any activity. If I drop into my running activity here, I can go down and make sure that my map is set on, and now I can choose what map style I want, from high contrast to outdoor to dark mode, or I can simply turn the map off, which I don't want to do because I'm showing it to you in this video. But now if I just start my activity, I'll be able to see the map as one of my data pages within this activity. Now, when you're actually viewing the map, you can interact with it in multiple ways. First of all, you can simply touch the screen and move around the map with your finger, which is by far the easiest way. But if you have sweaty hands or you're in the rain or something like that, you can zoom in and out and pan and do all of the actions simply by using the buttons on the Suunto Vertical as well. The mapping experience on the Suunto Vertical is really good. There's a ton of detail on the maps. However, one major thing is lacking. There are no labels on the Suunto Vertical maps, which means for roads and trails and things like that, you won't see text that indicates the name of the road or trail you're on. You'll simply just see the road or trail that you're following. And on top of that, these are not routable maps on the Suunto Vertical. They're really just maps for context of what's around you. So if you have a trail junction coming up, you'll be able to see that ahead of time and make a decision on which way to go. But because these maps are not routable, that means you won't be able to do turn-by-turn directions directly on the watch and generate a route without using your phone. If you want to create a route or design a course, you'll have to do that within the Suunto app on your phone. All of that is worth mentioning because while the mapping on the Suunto Vertical is really good, it's still not quite up to the competition like on the Garmin Fenix 7 or Epix Gen 2 I have here, where you have fully routable maps and the ability to design a course right on the watch without your phone. That said, the route planner and route designer within the Suunto app is very good. You can follow a trail and it will automatically route the line along the trail. You can mark waypoints and points of interest within the app and sync that over to your watch to follow in real time, and it all works really well. On top of designing your own course, you can also import a GPX file from anything like Strava or Komoot and sync that over to the watch to follow on top of your map as well. The mapping and navigation experience on the Suunto Vertical is very useful, and I'm glad they added this feature. It's something that Suunto really needed, with brands like COROS out there doing a similar thing. Honestly, the COROS mapping and navigation and the Suunto Vertical mapping and navigation are pretty similar at this point. Moving right along, let's talk about GPS modes and accuracy, because this is another area where Suunto has made a big upgrade. The new Suunto Vertical is compatible with a new dual-band GNSS system, which means it can use multiple frequencies to attain a GPS location. So in my testing, I took the Suunto Vertical out for a bunch of different runs while also wearing the Apple Watch Ultra and the Garmin Forerunner 965, which are both multi-band enabled, and both in my testing have performed really well. And to no surprise, the Suunto Vertical has performed really well as compared to these other test devices. I've gone on a bunch of 10+ mile runs, and in most cases, the Suunto Vertical is pretty much bang on when it comes to GPS accuracy. However, that's not where the story ends, because when I did all of that testing, I did it in the highest performance mode, which takes the most battery life to get the best GPS accuracy. So what happens if I dial back the GPS accuracy into a lower mode to preserve battery life? So I did some testing and I dialed the Suunto Vertical back into what they call ultra mode, which is supposed to last way longer at a reduced accuracy with GPS. And in that mode, I still got really good GPS accuracy, even in that reduced performance mode. In the reduced performance mode, the tracks weren't absolutely perfect like they were in the high performance mode, but they're perfectly acceptable and better than most of the inexpensive watches on the market today. And in terms of total distance recorded at the end of my activities, all of these devices lined up pretty favorably, from the Suunto Vertical to the Apple Watch Ultra and even my Garmin Forerunner 965. With GNSS accuracy out of the way, let's move right along into battery life, because these things kind of go hand in hand. So battery life is a big deal on the Suunto Vertical. They've made some huge changes with this watch, and this watch has some of the best battery life on the market today. So in smartwatch or standby mode with heart rate sensor turned on, you'll get up to 30 days of use out of a single charge on this watch. However, if you do get enough sunlight every day with the solar model, you can get up to 60 days of use on a single charge in smartwatch mode. But that's not where the story ends. Let's talk about GPS-enabled activity battery life when you're out for your run or your ride. So in that highest performance mode with the best accuracy in dual band, multi-band turned on, you will get up to 60 hours of use with the Suunto Vertical. However, if you get enough sunlight with solar, you will get up to 85 hours, which is really impressive in multiband mode. But what I think is more interesting than that is endurance mode. In this mode, you'll get up to 90 hours or up to 140 hours with solar. So what is endurance mode? Well, it's basically the same settings that you get on the Suunto 9 Peak Pro, which is all systems enabled on a single band, which means you'll still get really good accuracy and you'll get up to 140 hours of use with the Suunto Vertical. And if that's not enough battery life for you, you can switch into Ultra mode, which will actually give you a single band in GPS only, and that'll reduce the power to 50% from the antenna, and that'll give you up to 140 hours of use in an activity or 280 hours with solar, which should be enough battery life for any activity out there. When I talked to Suunto about their battery claims, they were very confident in these numbers. In fact, they said that they rated this watch pretty conservatively and that some users could get even better battery life than they're specifying. At this point, I think it's easy to say that the Suunto Vertical is class leading when it comes to battery life, and that's something I did not expect from Suunto, but they did a great job here, and this thing has absolutely ridiculous battery life. Okay, now that we've talked about GPS accuracy and battery life, let's talk about heart rate accuracy from the built-in optical heart rate sensor on the back of this watch. As you can see here, the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the watch looks to be the exact same sensor that was featured on the Suunto 9 Peak Pro. I can't confirm that or deny that, but by the eye, they look very similar. To test out the heart rate sensor on the Suunto Vertical, I've taken this watch on a whole bunch of different runs while also wearing an ECG sensor across my chest, which gives me a good baseline of comparison, and it's typically the most accurate way to take your heart rate while you're doing an activity. And when I analyzed the graphs after my runs while wearing the Suunto Vertical compared to some other test devices, I've noticed that there are a few issues along the way. And at the beginning of my runs, there's some instability with the Suunto Vertical. It's almost like the heart rate sensor can't lock on to my heart rate super perfectly. There's some wobbliness, it looks a little bit low, and then after a few minutes, it catches up and it looks pretty good throughout the rest of the run. When it comes to the performance of the heart rate sensor on the Suunto Vertical, I'm a little perplexed because on some runs, I got really good performance, and on others, it was a bit off, and at the beginning, it was a little bit wobbly, and then it caught up, and at the end, there were some spikes and drops and things like that. It's just not perfect. I'd say it's acceptable, and if I wasn't comparing it to something like an ECG sensor, I probably wouldn't complain about it. It's not that bad, but it is an area where I wish it was just a little bit better. All I can do is share my experience. Now that we're nearing the end of this video, I want to talk about what's missing and who I think this watch is for. First of all, let's talk about what's missing. The fact that this watch has 32 gigabytes of internal storage that's only used for map storage, I think is kind of a missed opportunity. I do wish this watch had music playback, and maybe you don't use that. Maybe you're not a Garmin user and not used to music playback. But the fact that my Garmin can sync Spotify playlists or download MP3s and I can listen to them phone free is a nice feature to have. And the fact that the Suunto Vertical actually has internal storage, 32 gigabytes of it is a lot. I wish I could utilize that for music storage. That would be nice. I'm nitpicking, but it would be a nice feature to see. Another thing I wish they changed about the Suunto Vertical is the buttons. The fact that there's only 3. I wish there was a 5-button layout with this watch. It's a big watch. It seems like they have enough real estate for it to add a couple of more buttons over here. Maybe that's just me because I'm typically a Garmin user, but it makes me feel more at home, and I like having that dedicated back button. And the final thing I wish was different about the Suunto Vertical is the maps. I wish they were routable. I wish they had map labels to tell you what road or trail you're on. I wish you could calculate a route on the fly to get back to the beginning of your activity and using the map data to get there, or put in like the summit of a mountain and have the watch do all the calculating to get you to that point. Unfortunately, you will still need to use the Suunto app for all of those actions. With all of my nitpicking out of the way, let's talk about final thoughts and who I think this watch is for. At the end of the day, the Suunto Vertical is a welcome addition to the Suunto lineup, and a reminder that Suunto is still Suunto, and they're still innovating and developing exciting new products. The Suunto Vertical is going to be a great option for Suunto fans and users who are waiting for a watch with insane battery life for multi-day adventures or ultra marathons, along with solar support and that new mapping functionality. I am really excited about the launch of the Suunto Vertical, and I've genuinely enjoyed using this watch over the past week or so. However, we can't forget that this watch is very expensive at that $630 to $830 price point. And at that price point, there's a lot of competition out there. I hate to keep coming back to it, but the Garmin Fenix 7X Solar Sapphire is $899, And at that price point, it's pretty similar in price to the highest end titanium model of the Suunto Vertical. The Garmin Fenix 7X is going to give you more smartwatch functionality with music support, Spotify syncing, and things like that. You also get a far superior mapping and navigation experience with map labels and the ability to create routes on the fly without using your phone. At the end of the day though, these two watches are very different, and just because the Garmin Fenix 7X has more features doesn't mean it's right for you. If you're looking for more of a tool, a utility, something to get the job done for those adventures or long runs, and you want crazy long battery life and a nice looking watch to boot, go for the Suunto Vertical. If you want all of that other functionality with more app downloads and Connect IQ App Store support and the mapping and navigation upgrades and the internal music storage, I think the Garmin Fenix 7X for this kind of money is the way to go. But that's really up to you to decide. At the end of the day, the market is currently flooded with amazing options out there, and the Suunto Vertical is just one more to have to decide between. And now I want to hear from you. Are you going to go for the Suunto Vertical, or are you just going to get something like the Garmin Fenix 7X? Let me know in the comments down below what feature excites you about this watch, why you're going to get it, or why you're going to skip it. I'd love to hear from you. Comment down below. And with that, we have reached the end of this video, and this was my review of the brand new Suunto Vertical and what I think about it so far. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you went down and gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below. And of course, if you're planning on picking up the Suunto Vertical, the Garmin Fenix 7X, the 9 Peak Pro, or any watch I've showed off in this video, check out the links in the description, because they help support this channel and they cost nothing extra to you, so you might as well use them. And with that, I gotta go now. I've been talking for way too long. I'm losing my voice, and I'll see you next time. Bye!